Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here. We are going to talk about what is probably the largest IT company in the world. And I was very, very excited when I heard that the president of this company happens to be in St. Moritz. And I asked him to come, and he accepted to come. And he told me it's, not all about Bitcoins that I'm going to talk about. But I think it's nevertheless very important to know what those big companies think. And I found out later that this guy has an incredible story. So please help me welcome Mr. Sohn, president of Samsung.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you. So you had a good time in St. Moritz so far?
It's my first time, but it's been fun. You took me to first time coming down the luge. I thought I was going to die.
I thought so too.
He goes, you don't need any scare. Just go in there and come down. And I realized it's going much faster than I can control. So there are some techniques you have to apply, like braking and then cornering. So first 10 minutes was like hell, and then after that was really fun, right?
I really thought we're not going to make it down. The first two, curves looked very dangerous. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about walking back up, but then you told me a real kite surfer never goes back up. We're going to do that, right?
Absolutely. Go for it. Take some risk. Yeah.
Excellent. So is that true? Is Samsung one of the largest companies, IT companies in the world, like I read on the internet?
Well, I think it is in terms of a multiple dimension. I think that we have, how many of you have Samsung phones? I hope enough of you have.
Any Samsung phones here?
So worldwide, I think we have 24% of our market. So we're number one in terms of volume. But maybe most things you don't know is actually what's underlying technology. Samsung is really a technology company. So it is the largest semiconductor company. So some of even, the Bitcoin mining is done through our semiconductor process. Like before, it would be one of the customers, as an example. So there is a technology that actually going underneath. Think about cloud and think about all your data, right? The data is doubling every 2 years. And in a way, because we are in storage business and we store half of all the worldwide data, the more Instagram you do, the more pictures you take, frankly, better for our memory business. So all these things have some interesting reinforcing flywheel effect in our business. And this is why I think we became fairly big. But, this is a really tough business, though. As you know, things will change, and you have to go to next evolution, next innovation. Otherwise, you're going to be yesterday's company.
So you are investor actually in Bitfury. Samsung has invested in Ledger. So there is a lot of points where you... And of course, the chip business is very important for you. You brought the Intel, Samsung together while you were still working at Intel, I remember.
Yep.
And you are the most connected chip guy in the industry worldwide. You won this award, right? I read that somewhere. So it's pretty impressive. On the board of ARM, Cymex Corporation, Cymer, Hyundai, Sky, PLX. It's unbelievable how you do all that stuff. And you have to know from Young that he is not really a corporate guy. He's actually an entrepreneur. So how on earth did you pull that off? How did you, convince a company like Samsung to look outside of Samsung? You're the only executive outside of Korea, I understand. And you got, for the first time, to make an acquisition outside of Korea for Samsung, which is a huge acquisition. Samsung bought Harman Kardon for $8 billion, and that was, I guess, your idea. Tell us, how did you start with them? How did you change the culture of a company as a one-man show?
So innovation is actually a very difficult thing, especially when you're successful, because it usually went into your past success. So any of you very successful, it'll be hard to change your organizations because success brings this difficulty of change. But my background, because I was in Silicon Valley for so long, I'm so used to seeing innovations. And then I done my startups. and I done my investment. So those kind of combination of being able to see outside, realizing that things can really change, and then try to use that outside DNA to change company that's 70 years old. So how do you do that is always a tricky balance. But I think that having a expertise, certain area that you want to look at, and relationship with the people, and then you got to be more persistent. So all those things, hard to say, but it's an effort, and I would say it's not an easy journey. I'm sure any of you that worked in large companies, you try to change those organizations, not that simple. So it requires a bit of luck, skill, and trust.
So how did you get the trust of the board of Samsung?
Actually, that's a good question because my first job, when I was actually early days in Intel, because my first job out of college was Intel, I had an opportunity to work for a guy named Andy Grove. And the
CEO of Intel.
Yeah, so Andy decided that he needed a partner in Korea, long time ago. So he was going to go business trip to Korea, and he goes, "Young, I don't know anybody speaks Korean in my team. Why don't you come along?" And I was just out of college, right? So what he didn't know is my Korean sucks. Because I left Korea when I was young. So obviously in Korea, there is a multi-level of a hierarchy in terms of language and tone and honorific that you use. He has no clue that I didn't speak Korean because I left when I was young. So, but he knew I was a Korean and Korean American. So he took me along. That turned out to be a great opportunity to meet the founder of Samsung, who passed away. Really got to know them. So when you do that for over the years, then you build a trust. And so trust doesn't happen overnight, as you know, like anything we do. It takes time, and you have to prove that you can deliver to your promise. And over the years, they got to know me. So when I took my last company public, and then I said, I'm just going to do investments. So I invested in companies like Zoom, Befurry, and others, just trying to see what's coming. And then Samsung asked me, "Why don't you do that? Our company, we have a lot of assets, and you can make a bigger impact." So here you go, bigger
Excellent.
playground.
So you went to Korea young, and you're still young. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I like that.
Forever young.
Forever young, exactly. So now you're building. You kind of build startups for Samsung, and you invest in startups for Samsung, and you build clusters, and they're quite huge clusters, I found out. One in Israel, one in the Silicon Valley, one in Paris as well. Tell us a little bit about these activities.
So, so the question is, how do you get the best ideas from outside? And as you know, today, really the things are converging. So in old days, if you think about what are the fundamental technologies that are impacting our lives, it was usually physical things. And then, obviously, the biology has really expanded. And then the bits came, right, digital. When you combine those three things, you can have a huge changes. And these ideas doesn't come from one large company. So you have to be where smart people, entrepreneurs that are taking risk, the funders that are willing to go long term. So what we have done is we had a three-pronged strategy. One is we had our innovation lab. So some things we'll innovate within. And then some things we'll work with the venture capitalists. So we do a lot of what they call fund-to-fund, supporting other VCs so that they can be able to bring network. Thirdly, then we also have a direct investment, and we invested about 400 companies. And to do that, you need to have a kind of critical mass. So we started from Korea, Silicon Valley, and then Israel, and then Paris. We're just going to open an office in Berlin. So we are expanding step at a time. And then, of course, we have an operation in China, so that would be the kind of coverage.
Excellent. Where's the biggest operation right now in this perspective?
Right now, the biggest operation is Silicon Valley still.
Silicon Valley?
Because still about 40% of all the money that is spent is in Silicon Valley.
Excellent.
But it's becoming much more flat and global, and actually, great idea doesn't really get monopolized by Silicon Valley companies. I mean, look at Israel. They have some great companies that are coming out. Some great technology companies are also coming out of Europe as well, particularly Central Europe.
So is it still that software is eating the world, or do we need to make some big steps in hardware as well? Where is your thinking there?
Good question. I think I wouldn't subscribe to that. I think Anderson said software is eating the world, but I don't think so. Think about what can you do with just software without, let's say, physical or without processing power or storage or networking that can keep up with it. So in a way, those things have to come together. So in my view, I think software is very critical, but the fundamental technology have to keep up, whether it is a network processing or neuromorphic processing units, or even just the optical communications that can move your bits and bytes around the world, right? And cloud wouldn't be enabled by software alone without having servers, without having storage, without having the CPUs and MPUs that can be able to run these things. They have to come together, and I think that's the exciting thing about it, because it's happening much quicker. And openness is really important. I think that you are all here because you believe in open community, decentralized. Software and hardware used to be developed by big companies, structured. But actually, any of you can be a software engineer, because now, with a high-level script language, anybody can really code, because coding is done. You just have to think about what's the problem you want to solve. That, I think, is the next generation of software. So software is not eating the world, but software is clearly an operating system that are enabling all solutions.
Okay. What other trends do you see for the longer term, for like the 10-year, 15-year, since that's your...
Yeah, so I think that you guys probably read and heard a lot about autonomous subject. So I call them smart machines. Because at the end of the day, whether it's a robot, whether it's a car, whether it's the drones, they're all autonomous part. It's semi-autonomous. So I think that technology will continue to evolve. Obviously, any innovation have to be in pace with the regulation, because usually regulation is way behind. And innovators up here. So how do you catch up?
We know that very well here in this.
Absolutely. So that's one, I think, dilemma that we have to continue to work on. But I think autonomous is coming, and it should be able to help you live better. It should be a better driver, because it is helping you to detect objects you might not be able to see, but advanced radar that can be able to see 300 meters out in midnight or fog. That will help you, because you'll automatically slow down. And that type of things are coming. So it's not just autonomous, it's about helping you to drive better. So it's much more assisted driving. The other one that I'm personally really excited about, and I even invested in a German company called ADA Health. It is all about information and data and sensory that can give you better, what I call diagnostic about your health before you have problems. So how do you monitor key trend, whether it's your glucose monitoring from Dexcom, or being able to monitor heart rate variability from your devices, or being able to see eventually blood pressure, in my view. If you can figure out these key vital signs, then we can have EWS, early warning system. And when you get that early warning system, it's not like when you have a problem to see a doctor. You will actually have an indications that can be able to transfer into your care, and then give you more proactive testing, proactive discussions. And that, I think, is a much better way to go, and bring the cost of care too. If you think about United States today, 20% of GMP is in healthcare. It's not affordable, because it's going up, 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 and rest of the world is catching up as well. And this is we are all going to work for health industry.
Absolutely, I love ADA. It's a software on the iPhone, and since
and smartphone, Samsung phone. That's okay. There's actually a story. I don't know whether you know, but that fruit company is the largest customer of us. So all of our content is in there, so you just don't know it, but the chips, display, things like that. We are good times.
Spending a day with you, I learned a lot where Samsung is in. I had no idea. The absolutely excellent over-the-air update of Tesla, I didn't know that was also from Samsung. But ADA is really, for me, my go-to software, and I couldn't invest in it, unfortunately. I wanted to, but they were already too expensive. Maybe you can for me. And you can just ask questions about, or tell them symptoms about how you feel or someone in your family feels, and then it will list you all the possible causes for it. And it's great because you go to the doctor, you never get all the possible causes. The doctor usually tells you it's this or that,
Right.
probably this or that.
Or
But
just
I like to have, you know, a whole list of what of everything it could be, and Adia does that really nicely and does it for free too.
Yeah, and I think that right now it's all based on like a knowledge tree. So all the trees that are already built. But imagine that, and millions of us are using it. That'll create a database, and that'll be a learning machine. And alone, that'll give you, in fact, even better insight. And then on the top of that, think about your genome information, right? Genome used to be, how much did it cost you when they did the first sequencing of genes? $3 billion? Today, the gene sequencing costs less than $1,000. So having information about your genome, having information about your lifestyle, which is a big, important part of what you eat, what exercise do you do, and then having a vital signs. When you have those things together, along with the knowledge database, together, I think you can get much better insight. And I believe this is where AI comes in, because you are now dealing with many unstructured data. When you come together, what does that mean? Very hard for humans to get that conclusion in coming from disparate information. So we're very good at when you look at the information around there, but coming from different angles, it's very hard to tell. So I think the future is really about data and AI, along with critical sensors that give you better insight about our body. When you put that together, I think we can learn a lot more about our body. So I'm very excited about what's coming and what's possible.
And having good sensors like this one.
Yes.
The camera. So thank you so much for making your way out here. I know you travel very light, but we do have something we can give you that will fit in your hand luggage.
Great.
And I know you're a great triathlon man, so you can eat it all by yourself and it would have no effect, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. I really appreciate it. Yeah.